Hello and good afternoon. I'm Derek Jones with Hospitable. Welcome to today's webinar, which is Rank Higher and Get More Bookings. Thank you for joining us today. Today is August 13th, and so far this is the highest attendance webinar we have for one of the live workshops. So thank you for being here, and get ready to take some notes. We are also joined by Lisa, who is a customer support advocate based out of Pennsylvania. Lisa will be in the live chat. On the Get Contrast screen, you should be able to mark any comments, tell us where you're dialing in from or where you're joining. But if you also have questions, Lisa will help monitor those. She will then select a few of those questions for us to answer live at the end of the webinar. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. So today's topic is all about ranking higher and getting more bookings. So let's talk about what the webinar is not about. This is not a town hall. If you've never been on one of our town halls, we have public town halls every 2 weeks. On those calls, we go over product roadmap, new hires, open roles. You kind of feel like you're part of the company as a customer. That is not what this call is about today. Today, we're just covering ranking higher and getting more bookings. We can't answer any support questions or dig into any support tickets. Of course, you can always email support@hospitable.com, or you can live chat us if you have any questions. So we also have a quick disclaimer. Let me distill this for you. We're going to give lots of quick action items and tips on how to improve your listing. You should make the decisions on what to do. You should always be skeptical of anyone who is not the business owner. I don't know your listings. I don't know your market. So while we will go quickly on giving recommendations, you should assume that there is always an element that I am wrong, could be wrong, and very likely am wrong about some things. In addition, we will share an AI agent that we have created. We'll show you how to copy and paste all of the information out of your listing so that that agent will give you recommendations on your listing, your headline, your description, etc. You should also assume that while we have tested that agent, that it will make mistakes. That is also called hallucinating. AIs do it. They are not perfect. So please check the work that the AI agent will do for you, and assume and always be skeptical of any advice, including today's. So today is all about improving your listing with the goal of getting more bookings. So how will we cover that topic? Well, what we will do today is we are going to first discuss what is in Airbnb's algorithm. So we will be covering the top 10 ranking factors. There are more, and this is also not a completely demystified thing. We are using a lot of information that Airbnb has given us in the public, that they have stated. They have spoken directly about their algorithm and how they prefer hosts to list their listing. We will then give you some tools to test your listing and ultimately give you some advice and tips, but also an AI agent that will automatically suggest some tips and improvement for you. Now, I can already see a few of these questions coming in. We are only focusing on Airbnb's algorithm today. So specifically, we're going to talk about Airbnb's. You could assume or infer other channels like Vrbo, Booking, etc. follow similar ranking factors. But the research that we did and we'll be presenting today is about Airbnb. So when we say Airbnb and we're doing examples, you can more or less think about that for all of your channels, but we will be speaking about specifically that channel today. Okay, so you're going to spend the next hour with us. How about let's help you set a goal? I will set a goal. If you don't like this goal for you, set a different one. But this is an investment of your time, so I want to make sure you get something out of it. So I'll throw out a straw man goal that I would like for you to make one listing improvement today on the call. So I'm going to go through 10 Airbnb ranking factors, and you might say 9 of those are boring. I already know those things. But maybe one of them is a reminder that there's something you've wanted to do, needed to do, or you're not sure. So I want you to have this webinar open or on your second monitor. I want you to have your Airbnb account open as we go through these things. Click through, double check. I know the reason I put this book cover up called Nudge It's a great book about the psychology of changing behavior from a lot of small interactions. And I think that's for me. As a host myself, I create a listing. I get addicted to the adrenaline of the next booking, dealing with guest resolutions, or getting a new listing, right? Those are exciting things. It's not as exciting to go back and take a look at our listing. And every time that I go back into a listing and I see something, I'm like, wow, why did I do that? Or hey, I knew I was going to come back, but it's been a while. So the goal for you today, we're just going to nudge a little bit, hopefully one or two of these top 10 tips and the AI agent output that we'll show to you will inspire you to make a change. So go ahead, open up your Airbnb account. And as we go through, be prepared to make a couple small changes that hopefully could impact your revenue. So with that said, let's get into the top ranking factors. Okay, so the number one ranking factor is your booking conversion rate. So this is the number of people, it's just a percentage, the number of people who visit your listing and that actually end up booking, right? And where I left off was, Airbnb is obviously they want to make money off the bookings. So they understand that there's something, if people hit your page, there's something that prevents your listing from getting booked, whether it's bad pictures, an unclear headline, lack of clarity in the listing description or the photos, that you'll hit the back button, right? So this is the number one highest ranking factor. Now we're going to talk, and the AI agent that we'll show you is going to help improve your listing, the headline, and everything else. But when you're taking a look at your listing, I think the questions that you want to really make sure are, do the pictures match up? Is it easy to read the description? Right? Do you have lots of dense copy inside of the listing? It's very, very difficult to read where there's lots of dense copy. Okay. So we'll keep going here. Here's another factor that I'll call it a hot tip, if you will. This is actually my host profile page. Many hosts do not complete their host profile. So over the last about 16 months, Airbnb has given you more ability to share who you are and a little bit of your personality. And what we know is guests do visit this page. Airbnb tells us about 20% of all guests who book visit the host profile page. They want to see who you are. If you're deemed a little bit more legitimate and credible, then they're more likely to book. That will help increase your conversion rate. So let me give some examples over here on the right of what I see. So I've actually shown some examples. So like over here, Airbnb gives the option for you to say a fun fact. I tell people I'm an identical twin because I am. And you can see this was a reservation that I had where during the pre-booking stage, or actually this was the post-booking stage, just after, he says, hey, I see you have an identical twin. I also have an identical twin, and he will be staying here also, right? So it's just a little bit of a connection, right? You can also see that I've added my useless skill is eating a whole box of Girl Scout cookies. I can't tell you how many people have commented or asked me the question, which Girl Scout cookies is it? Now, of course, I let them know it's Thin Mints because there's no better than just the Thin Mints, right? I also have listed some cities that I've lived in, and this is a really cool example. I have hosted this same guest, Rachel, multiple times. It's a little bit smaller to see, I know, on your screen, but when she reached out, my listings are in just north of Atlanta, Georgia, and she lives in San Francisco. So she comes to visit, and I mentioned, hey, I live in San Francisco, and we've had a bunch of dialogue back and forth about favorite places and those kinds of things. So just apply your personality onto here. The things that make you unique, they don't have to be revealing. It doesn't have to, you're not giving your address or your phone number out to them at this stage anyways. But improving your host profile, I think, is a quick tip that you can do to help increase your conversion rate. Okay, the second ranking factor is the click-through rate, or what's called the CTR. So this is the percentage of people who click your listing when it appears in the search. So if you go to Airbnb and you type in, Atlanta, Georgia, and you put in the dates. So Airbnb is looking at how many times is your listing presented, and what's presented in that right, you usually see the tiles, right? It'll show whether it's on mobile or on desktop, it's going to show 6 to 8 listings. And the only thing that is showing at that point, the only two things that are showing is your listing headline and your hero photo, your primary photo. Okay, and that's why those things are so, so important. Your cover photo is what gets people to click in. And then obviously the conversion rate matters after that as well. So you don't want to have a photo that's amazing and it looks exceptional, and then people click into your listing and it's a real bore, or it's inaccurate, or it's misleading, because then your conversion rate goes down. So these things need to sort of be accurate, but the headline and your hero picture, and I can't tell, we'll actually go through a few of the listings that you guys have submitted. The number one thing that I can see in the listings that were submitted is oftentimes the hero photo needs to be either reshot, or it's a great hero selection image, but it's too dark, or it's not staged correctly, and it's not appealing for someone to be curious to click into your listing from the Airbnb search results. Okay. All right. We will keep going here. Ranking factor number 3 is obviously competitive pricing. Okay. So pricing really matters. And what we also know here is Airbnb has indicated to us that more simple pricing is preferred by guests. And they're starting to share in their earnings release that hosts who are blending in cleaning fees, pet fees, to make those fees more simple are actually getting higher bookings. Okay, so look, you need to price correctly. You're running a business, you need to have the right margin, right? But using a dynamic pricing tool, we still see that almost 30% of our customers who are connected to Airbnb are using no dynamic pricing tool. And so it's not even a plug, it's just a reminder, since everyone on this call is a Hospitable customer today. If you are connected to Airbnb with Hospitable using our PMS connection, it's the property management software connection, the way you'll know this is you'll go into your Hospitable account, you'll hit connected accounts, and you'll see a little green icon next to your Airbnb connection. If that says PMS, it's the green icon, then Airbnb's smart pricing is turned off. So you have no dynamic pricing happening today. And so I'm willing to guess that 30%, since we see that 30% of our customers who are PMS connected to Airbnb have no other dynamic pricing tool, whether it's Price Labs or Wheelhouse or Beyond, you're either manually pricing or the pricing is sort of stuck from when you did the PMS connection. So Hospitable does, and we did release, we have a dynamic pricing tool. This was the subject of the last town hall. It's had lots of updates, and it's free for our core plans, right? So if there's plenty of help articles out there as well. So availability obviously matters as well, and you need to price it correctly. But if you are someone who is unaware that if you are connected to Airbnb and you don't have a third-party dynamic pricing tool, please check out Hospitable's integrated dynamic pricing, or check out one of the partners in the app marketplace and get connected quickly. Okay, next ranking factor, guest reviews and ratings. Obviously, reviews are your currency for credibility. There's a nice tipping point, especially for new listings, once you get about 10 reviews. We see this in our own data where sometimes hosts will launch a new listing, and it might take 3 or 4 months for you to get 10 reviews, because not every guest leaves a review. Okay, I'll actually discuss that in a moment. But if you do have a new listing or bring on a new listing, we highly, highly advocate that you adjust your pricing potentially downward. You can obviously change the settings inside of Airbnb to only allow instant book from guests who have experience or actually have a couple 5-star reviews. But even if you are going to review these, I highly advocate that it is a race to get 10 reviews if you have a new listing. And the faster you can do that, the better. That then starts to launch the listings pretty well. Now, the other thing about reviews is review replies matter. Okay, so review replies are when both sides, the host and the guest, have left a review, and that then opens up the ability for the host to reply to that review. So you get kind of a second chance to mark any comments. And what we find is oftentimes people are not using that part of the Hospitable product. So I'll show that in just a moment. But the first thing is you need to get a review. Okay. I have about an 85% review rate. Airbnb claims that about 60% of guests leave reviews. So if you're below 60%, that's Airbnb's number, then you're below the market. What I'm going to show you here is how I get a much higher percentage than the average host to get a review. And so let me break down my review message. Okay, so first of all, the review message that I have, I send 3 hours after the checkout. And the reason I send it 3 hours after the checkout is because the review period for Airbnb opens 4 hours after the checkout. What happens at the 4-hour mark? The guest gets a notification on their Airbnb app and an email saying it's your time to leave a review, right? If you've stayed in Airbnb, you see that come through as well. And by that point, the guest is on their way, they're driving, maybe they're even home. And so I try to time this message to get a little bit ahead of that. So if the guest is not planning on leaving a review, I'm going to know and I can start to mitigate this. So let me break down the message. So timing is important, okay? The first request I ask is 3 hours after. The hosts that I see that have the lowest percentage of guest review rate are those that are burying the request for review in checkout instructions, right? The people are just trying to get out of there. They're done with their stay. They're trying to make sure they don't do anything wrong with your checkout instructions. And so I advise that this is a discrete single message and that you send it out 3 hours after. Okay, let me break down the message. So I say, hi, guest first name. I say, I plan on leaving you a 5-star review. And the reason I do this is I wasn't an incredible student in high school or college, but I did take a basic psychology class and always remembered that there is a concept called reciprocity that is tremendously built into humans' brains, that if you give something to someone and you are the first one to give, the likelihood that someone will, what psychologists would call, they would call it comply, is many, many times more likely, and usually people will give more than what they were planning on if you were the first to give. So I try to tap into that concept and say, now if the cleaner told me they had a rager and they broke 18 wine glasses, of course I'm not leaving a 5-star review, right? In Hospitable, I can delay the review, and that will then delay this request for review to go out. But let's assume that it was a normal guest, no issues. I say, I plan on leaving you a 5-star review, okay, when the period opens in 1 hour, okay? And I'm very direct with them. I'm letting them know it's coming, right? So they're going to see it. That also puts a bit of a time constraint on it, so we can start to address anything if that takes place. I then say, if there's anything that would stop you from doing the same, please let me know how we can make it right. And I keep it very general on make it right. Now, the primary purpose for the make it right is I want to know. I'm the owner of these properties, or I'm co-hosting for someone else. I want to know if there's something we could do that I'm not aware of, right? Because a lot of guests can be passive. They won't otherwise share issues until you get a review. And I don't want the first time to find out there was an issue to be in the review. I know that can be frustrating. But I also ask make it right, because we all have had the guest who is unfortunately unreasonable and maybe saw like one ant in the kitchen, or even though the picture said there were 6 stairs up to the back door, they didn't like, that there were steps at the house, and they plan on leaving you a bad review for something they didn't tell you about. Well, it is against Airbnb's review policy for it's under their review policy if a guest, quote unquote, extorts you for a review. So I'm soliciting here when I say, how can I make it right? I'm soliciting feedback. Now, if the guest replies back Yeah, you know what? There was one ant in the doorway, and it looked at me the wrong way. I want a 20% discount. Doesn't matter what review that guest leaves after, there is a near 100% chance you're going to be able to get that review removed, because at that point it's considered extortion. They're asking for monetary compensation in exchange for a review. So this particular phrase has a dual purpose. As I continue on in the message, when it says, when leaving your review, there's a private remark section. Okay. Now I have this particular review request scoped to Airbnb, right? Because not all channels have a private remark section, right? The review process is a bit different. But that's the nice thing about Hospitable, is you can scope a specific review rule down to the channel, right? In this case, it's Airbnb. And I say, okay, when you're leaving a review, there's a private remarks section only my team sees. Would you please share 2 ways we could improve, even if you leave a 5-star review? Right. And this is where I get tremendous feedback. The Airbnb is a fantastic community of hosts and guests. It takes both sides to make it work. So I'm letting them know there is a place to leave. Yeah, even if a guest has 5, 6, 7, 8 reviews, public reviews, we can't assume that they know how to use the private remarks. And they might just leave every little thing in the kitchen sink in the public review section. And they're sort of like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Right. That's happened to me before. And so I learned from that. And I said, look, there's a private remark section. But I actually find I get the best feedback from those who leave me 5-star reviews, because they're like, hey, I had a good stay. It was a good value, but they're willing to provide feedback. And so I review that with my team at the end of every month. So I think it also just opens up that if you're a host who's open to feedback, then they're like, you know what, there were 1 or 2 issues, but like they're trying, they want to. And I think it mitigates a potential issue. And sometimes if they were on the fence about a 4-star review or 5, they might just bump you up to a 5. Okay, so just, you can doctor this however you want. I send this 3 hours out. I then replicate. All I do is copy the message in Hospitable. I then have it go out 18 hours after checkout, 36 hours after checkout. And then I have one final request the day before the 14 days is done. So I actually ask the exact same question 4 times, because reviews are so important. And we know that Airbnb is using this in their ranking factor, not only the percentage of reviews that you get, but the quality of those reviews also. So hopefully that tip helped. The next thing we'll move on is review replies. This is a powerful feature in Hospitable, but I can't tell you how many times I hop on with customers and they're not using it. So this is under your guest experience section, and the page will be defaulted over to pending messages. But if you click pending review replies, what you see on the screen here is this guest has left a public review. And you can see the public review is in quotes at the top. So the review period is over, and or we have both left review. So I've left my review, they've left theirs maybe 3 days after or the day of. The reviews are then made public. Okay, you can see the private remarks here next to the lock. And kind of ironically, they actually gave me some remarks in the private comments, right? Which is exactly what I asked. The front door does not close without the deadbolt. I think outdoor furniture would be a good improvement. Okay, so once the reviews are left, pretty much within like 5 minutes, our AI will write the review reply here. You need to come into here and hit reply. It will not automatically post these review replies unless you come in here. So what we do is we take a look at the public review that they left, and then we write something that is unique. This is like if you go to a restaurant, your local restaurant, you see on Yelp or Google, you see that there have been a lot of reviews left and the owner is replying to those. You kind of get this feeling like, you know what, that's a local person. He really cares about his business, right? So we want that same impact. Not only that will help conversion rate, but this is also a ranking factor for Airbnb, is like, do you get reviews and are you doing review replies? They want to see that this section is active. So you need to come in and just hit reply. And I clean these out like once or twice a week. I believe the review reply period is open for 10 days. I'm not 100% sure. If you are certain, you can type that in the chat. You do have a window in which, though, if you don't do the review reply, that you can't leave the review reply any longer. So you do need to clear these out at least once a week is my recommendation. And this is what it looks like, right? If you think about a conversion rate, what are people going to do when they hit the page, right? We know that this is a major ranking factor. People click on your listing because let's say you have a great headline and a great photo. They're going to click the reviews. They're going to come in and see what people have to say about it. So if I've highlighted here my review replies, and 100% of my reviews get review replies. It's a requirement for us. And sometimes if it was not a 5-star review, our AI definitely is very aware and tries to keep things neutral. It's not defensive. It's focused. It doesn't admit fault with anything that they said. It just encourages that we'll take the feedback into consideration. You can edit the review reply as well. So if you want to write a unique one, that's fine, but do leave review replies. Again, just like if you're going to a restaurant and you see that there's a bunch of reviews, you see that the owner is replying. It's like, wow, that's an active business. Oh, I also just took a look at that host's profile and he said he's an identical twin. See all these things coming together? That starts to get into the psychology of the guest who might only really click into 4 or 5 listings, and they might just, one of these things could be the edge factor for you to get booked. Okay, we're going to keep moving here. Ranking factor number 5, instant book. Airbnb doesn't like if you turn instant book off. Okay, I know for some hosts, this is something that you may not budge on, and that's fine. There are lots of ranking factors here. This is not a suggestion that you have to do all these things, but do know that Airbnb does give a big boost in ranking. So if you aren't aware, Airbnb gives the option to do a request to book, where the guest can request. We have a messaging rule where you can ask questions, specific questions, if you want to know if you want to accept that booking. So if you do instant book, or if you don't allow instant book, we want to approve them quickly. But also there is actually a filter on Airbnb's search page for instant book, and it's fairly prominent. And guests, especially if they're booking last minute, they don't want to have to wait for a host. Unfortunately, some hosts might wait hours. I think hosts have 24 hours to review the review request. And if someone's like coming into town and you have a weekday orphan night open, they may only choose those hosts who allow instant book, right? So check your settings. The update recently here, and why you may want to review the settings if, let's say, you don't allow instant book today. Airbnb has enabled additional options to allow guests with, I think they call it a positive experience, which means they might have at least 2 5-star reviews, or they're not a brand new guest. You can also require that, if they have a photo ID and some other things. So recheck that section of Airbnb, because they have added a few extra things to encourage hosts who are not allowing instant book to allow it, such that it might be less concerning that a guest that has no reviews is booking your place for the first time. Okay, ranking factor number 6, response rate and speed. Okay, this is one of those things that's like in the background. They have a number for it. So they know if you're someone who takes 2 hours to respond, that's not a great experience. Same thing on the request to book, right? If you're going to accept or deny a guest, if you don't allow instant book, just do it fast. Don't delay it. Ask the questions. If they don't ask the questions, just decline it and have them resubmit, because speed is a factor. Okay, so obviously inside of Hospitable, you have the improve and suggest with AI. That's totally designed around speeding up your replies. I think probably the number one hot tip that I have is just use the suggest and improve with AI, but also in your properties section of the product, you have a knowledge hub. So if you click on our properties tab, there is an option called knowledge hub, and I'll actually show you that here. Okay, so if I go into properties and I click into one of my properties and click knowledge hub, now my knowledge hub is created here, but I'm saying this because my guess is probably 50% of you don't know this knowledge hub is here and haven't activated it. Okay, you'll have a big button here when you show up, and it will say generate a knowledge hub. And what happens is Hospitable will create these topics based on your listing description, your house rules, and how you have responded to common questions. All right. This will enable you to have more confidence using the suggest and improve with AI function. You can even, before you leave this page, based on the topics and the responses that we've told the AI to do, you can actually test it. You could type in your question, what day is trash day, right? You could ask it and simulate. And if you don't like the answer, right, then you could just come down and you could adjust that section, save it, and then you're good to go. You can also upload a house manual. So if I go into sources here, you can add a new source. You could upload a PDF. So activate your Knowledge Hub. The workflow that I suggest to people is, if you ever find yourself editing the response that suggest or improve with AI gave because it was not factual or just you would respond a different way, go ahead and make that change, but then go back to the Knowledge Hub and make sure this topic is there, or edit the topic. And then over the next few weeks, you're going to find that you're not really having to edit those responses a whole lot more. That then leads into that, just using improve and suggest with AI should dramatically improve your response rates. However, if you take that one step further, this is a mobile only option. So just prefacing that as well, we use that Knowledge Hub and we automate the replies. So it's called Inbox AI. You can set it up. Like what I do is I set this up after hours, right? I'm going to be pretty much responsive between core hours, but I can set this up to say overnight. Well, if someone's asking about Wi-Fi or anything else, I can also choose the booking stage. If it's for inquiries before or staying, I can have an escalation policy, like when do I want to reveal and tell them to call me. We're pretty sensitive about guest safety and security issues, so we'll pick those up. So there's plenty of options here. If you're using it today, make sure you've got the settings tuned up. If you're not using this, we can actually give you a free trial of this and turn it on, but it's leveraging the Knowledge Hub. So no matter what you do, even if you don't turn on the responses automatically, make sure your Knowledge Hub is updated, okay? All right, we'll keep going here. Ranking factor number 7, acceptance and cancellation rate. So just if you do get a request to book, what percentage are you accepting? I'll give a hot tip that happens to me. I don't know, once a week or at least once a month, perhaps. I get a lot of solicitations in my inbox. It's cleaners, it's co-hosts trying to manage my property, and they'll do an inquiry or a request to book, and I'm like, oh, that's not real guests, so I just leave it there. But I'll go in and improve that because I'm like, wait, that's going to impact my acceptance rate. Like that's not, I have a couple properties where we don't have instant book turned on for some specific reasons. And so if I'm going to make that decision, I at least want to make sure my acceptance rate is fairly high. Obviously, cancellation rate is another thing. I think what I see happen incorrectly a lot of times is host making cancellations on behalf of a guest instead of having the guest cancel if they want to leave. Or I have a canned response in this situation that just asks the guest, hey, you want to check out, if they want to check out early or come early, we'll do an alteration request, right? But if the guest wants to cancel and we agree, obviously if you do a host cancellation, you don't want that to be host initiated. There's almost no situation in which you want that to be host initiated. You can contact Airbnb. You can tell the guest, hey, you can contact Airbnb to make that cancellation, but you want the source of the cancellation to be the guest. Okay. All right. Ranking factor number 8. This is where we'll spend some time using the AI agent, right? But your listing has to have high quality content. The photos have to be just really exceptional. You have to have a nice description, and you have to update your amenities. I think the hot tip here is 2 things. Well, you can see the hot tip. I have a why you'll love staying here bullet. We first started seeing this happen for real estate. I think like Keller Williams, actually, if we draw the source back, which is a huge brokerage here, at least in the United States, we started to see a lot of their listings for houses for sale. They would include at the top, what I love about this place. Then we actually saw Zillow and Redfin and the others. They have a dedicated section for this. So I think they were onto something, and we're starting to see that actually can help as well. Like you're saying, hey, why you'll love staying here. It's like you can give the list of things that your listing has and how close it is, but telling a story is more powerful. Telling a story appeals to our kind of emotional part of our brain, and it's like a person is telling us why they liked it without having to click in the reviews. I think the other thing here, and we'll show a live example of this, is just content is just way too dense, right? And so I think there's plenty of opportunity, and our AI agent bot will do this as well. I think the other thing that I was going to mention that I lost, but I now remember, is the amenities. So listing content is the written content, but there are when you create a listing for the first time, Airbnb presents a limited set of amenities because they're also looking at conversion rate. Like they want to get your listing live as soon as possible. And so they actually present an abbreviated list of amenities that are core: smoke detector, do you have a washer, those types of things. But when you go back to the amenity section, you open up, you're like, whoa, there's a lot more things here. And every 3 or 4 months, Airbnb is adding additional amenities. Like they now have a king bed that you can say, because some people like to search just for king beds. If you haven't clicked in the amenity section, this is considered listing content, and it will obviously, having more amenities will help in this guests who are looking and filtering by those amenities, but not a ton of guests is my guess, actually sorting by a lot of the amenities on the search tab. But Airbnb is taking a look. If I think at this point they have almost 100 amenities listed, and if you have 20 of those amenities, even if it's a beautiful listing, they're going to say, "Hi, that listing may not be as high quality as another listing that is available that is similarly priced." And because they're going to have a hair dryer, they're going to have a curling iron, they're going to have makeup cloths. Like if you have those things in your written description, make sure that you double back to the amenities. Okay. Especially, I think in the last 4 or 5 months, they've added at least 15 different amenity options. So check that out. Okay. Ranking factor number 9, calendar availability. So what is it? Very simple. It's just, is your calendar open, right? So make sure you're not double booked. That's obviously things that we do. I think my hot tip here, as I was thinking about, well, this is like you need to have calendar availability to show up in the search. I think a lot of hosts I'll say this, I was doing it wrong for a long time and recently made this change. I previously only allowed 2-day stays. And I would get these orphan nights or even some weekends where someone booked Wednesday through Saturday and then no one would book Saturday. So I used a rule set, and Airbnb and Hospitable now has rule sets inside of Hospitable that control the rule sets inside of Airbnb. You can even import your rule sets from Airbnb. This is a recent thing in the last few weeks. So it's now never been easier to create and manage your rule sets. So what I suggest you consider from a pricing perspective is you can raise your minimum price, let's call it 2 times more than you normally would, but then give a 50% discount if someone stays 2 nights or more. And then you can lower your minimum stay to 1 night, because there might be someone who wants to really stay in your place for that Saturday night, that you accepted a booking Wednesday through Saturday. It's hard for a split weekend to get booked, but if you could get the same price as you would have got for Friday and Saturday by raising your minimum price by 2x for a 1-night stay, would you take that stay if it was a reasonable guess? That increases your visibility, increases your click-through rate, increases your acceptance rate, and increases your conversion rate. All the things that we just mentioned, right? So consider this. You can now do it with rule sets inside of Hospitable. And the last thing is a listing boost. This is for new listings. If you're launching a new listing, just make sure you have all these things. You do get a boost in the rankings. Airbnb wants if you're a new host especially, if you invested all this time in furniture and you invested all this time in photos and you did all this stuff, they want you to get bookings. So then your endorphins go, you're like, whoa, wow, I got a booking. This is working for me. So you have about a 2 or 3 week period in which Airbnb really prioritizes you. They are also sending emails out to people who have been searching but did not convert with the promotion. So typically the promotion is going to be something like 15 or 20% off for the first 3 stays, and they will actually promote new listings also. Okay, these are the 10 ranking factors. I can't see the questions yet. We'll pull those up at the end. Now we're going to move into the portion of the call where we start to take a look at some live listings. And I'm going to show to you the AI agent that we've created. So let me walk through how we're going to do this. Now, many of you did submit your listings to be reviewed. I have a whole spreadsheet here, which I think I'll just go random. I'll actually ask Lisa, maybe give me a number 1 to 10. Lisa, whenever you come off mute, just tell me random number 1 through 10.
I'm going to say 7.
Okay, 7. Okay, all right. So while I pull up this listing, I'm actually going to share this. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a moment. And Lisa, if you wouldn't mind pasting this link, I'm sorry, you'll probably have to type it out in the chat. This is the link to the AI agent I'm about to show you how it can improve your listing. Okay, and again, you need to have an account with OpenAI's ChatGPT. It can be a free account or a paid account. But if you click this link and you don't have a ChatGPT account, it will ask you to sign up, and it's free. So all you need is a free account. Okay, Lisa, you said 7. Is that correct? All right. So I have a list of all the URLs that were submitted that gave us permission to do a live breakdown of your listing. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. All right. I do want to make sure that the review, let's see, the listing does have some reviews. This is a new listing, so I'm actually going to pass on this one. I'll go to like 14. How about this? Really, we could throw a dart at the dartboard. What I'm looking for is a listing here. This looks great. This is epic summer magic near parks, resort amenities. I can already tell you there's a lot of things I love about this listing. Okay, but on the margin, I want you to get a couple extra bookings. Okay, so we're going to break this listing down, regardless of it having 4.9 and 120 reviews, and it looks like a great listing. So what I am going to do, I am going to open up my ChatGPT bot. Okay, the way that this bot works is we are going to copy some information from the listing. Okay, so what I'm first going to do, I'm going to take the URL of this listing. I'm going to say, help me improve this listing. I'm going to include the Airbnb link, and you'll see it's going to give us prompts. Okay, now you don't have to follow every step, but the more information you give it, the better. Okay, so I'm going to come down here. It says copy and paste your listing headline. The listing headline is this: Epic Summer Magic near parks, resort amenities. Okay, so I'm going to say the headline is this. Okay, let's see what else it's asking me for. It's asking me to post the listing configuration. It tells me, where is that? The listing configuration is here. It's 12 guests, 5 bedrooms, 8 beds, 4.5 baths. So I'm going to say this is the configuration. Yeah, I made a spelling, but or a typo, doesn't matter. ChatGPT will clean that up. Okay, the next thing it is asking me to do is to paste the listing description. Okay, so the listing description, I'm going to hit show more. This is what we'll call the listing description here. The space is a different thing, so I'm going to do exactly what it asked me for. This is the description, and I'm going to go down. It's asking me to copy the space. I can already tell you, I love how this is broken out a little bit. It's not incredibly dense content. So I already like some of the things that I see. I'm going to say this is the about this space. Don't have to worry about it. ChatGPT is good. You can just keep copying this stuff in. You don't have to hit enter or go to the next line. It knows what it's doing. Okay, and then the next thing is I'm going to copy and paste the reviews. This is really important. The most powerful part of this is the reviews, because what the bot is going to do first, it's going to create an ideal guest profile. So if we take a look at the reviews and we know what people have loved about it and the feedback they're giving, we'll know who are the most likely people to book in the future. And then that's going to be the fodder which we use to improve your listing headline and description. So when I come in here, I open up the reviews, I'm just going to copy. And I use my cursor over here. I grab everything because then this grabs cleanliness, accuracy, everything. Now you do have to keep scrolling. It gets down to the bottom. You see it's loading. Then I have to move my mouse down a little bit. It keeps going, keeps going. Make sure you grab all the reviews. I can see there are 120 reviews. I want to keep going until the page does not paginate anymore. So we might almost, okay, here we are. I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to say here are the reviews. Okay, so now I've posted all those reviews. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the amenities. Okay, so if I grab here, it says what this place offers. I can see there are lots of amenities here. This is looking good. I'm going to drag and drop, come down, copy these. So I'll say amenities. Okay, let's see. I don't really know what I need to do next. So I'll just come back and it will tell me. Now, I'm going to skip one step here, but I would suggest that you do this. The bot will ask you, go find your top competitor. How do you know if they're top competitor? The way I do it is I search for the same configuration, 4 beds, 2 baths, whatever, single family home. I try to find, and I look at the one that has the most reviews and the highest rating reviews. That's really what I do. And I use Airbnb's algorithm to just take a look at that. And I think that they'll present a pretty good options because they know those are competitive listings. I would then copy the same information that I just did beneath this if you want the best outcome here, but I'm going to kind of shortcut this a little bit because this has a lot of reviews and I think it will give us a great result. So if I move on to the next step, it'll say, let me know if you're pet friendly. How do I know if they're pet friendly? I click in here. Oh, I don't see any pets. 40% of all Airbnb guests are traveling with a pet, so out the gate. Now, there could be limitations, allergies, HOA rules, that kind of thing, but pets, not allowing pets can be a deterrent. So I will say we are not pet friendly and do not allow any pets. Okay, what else do I need here? Okay, that's it. So it says, once I have all that, I will give you a data-backed ideal guest profile, property and listing improvements, 10 headline suggestions, and a rewritten description. And this I will hit present. This is where ChatGPT does its magic. You can see it grabbed all the appropriate reviews. It says there are 120 with a 4.91. And what it will do is it starts to break out who are the ideal guest profiles, predominantly from the review. So the more reviews you have, the better this will be. It says, hey, there's multi-generational Disney families, about 65% of guests. No surprise, this is a Disney listing. But it also starts to break down, what do they like? What do they not like? Where are they from? What months do they visit? Okay. The second profile are large friend groups traveling for theme parks. You then have profile 3 is a short family getaway. So that's the first section. Okay. Now that we've learned kind of who the ideal guest profile is, we'll start to suggest actionable improvement plans. And we break these out by themes. So in this case, it's water and climate comfort. We will give you as the owner or the host a listing adjustment. So what you can adjust in the listing, and then what is a potential on-site enhancement, right? You can't just say you have a hot tub and not add a hot tub, right? Or you can't say the place has freshly painted walls if there's scuffs all over the walls. So we tell you, hey, this is a change you might make to your listing, but also here's something you physically need to do with the property. We give it by themes. You can see here, water and climate comfort, sleep quality, cleanliness and first impressions, noise and neighbor awareness. Okay, so common themes that most listings have, we're extracting most of that from the reviews. Okay, the next section, we present headline ideas. Okay, headline ideas, and I view this as a menu because usually when I see these, it gives me some ideas, but I like, you know your listing best. But again, it's leveraging the ideal guest profile of what people like. And obviously the listing is, remember, we talked about click-through rate, right? So you want to have something that is compelling, that resonates with the people who stay, but also is accurate. But you can review all these. They can be a menu on which you can make changes. So take a look at this. This listing says epic summer magic near parks, resorts, and amenities. I think it sounds pretty good, but hey, maybe there's some small improvements here. Disney Fun Villa, steps to resort pool and lazy river. A lot of people talk about the lazy river. People may not know what resort amenities are. What are those? Is that like a gym? Is it like a bocce ball court? So I think what ChatGPT is doing is they're saying, okay, let's actually be more specific of what those popular amenities are that people talk about. It's a themed 5-bedroom. I think it's probably obvious it's a themed 5-bedroom. That's why I consider this a menu. It also says there's a private pool. I don't see that. I don't see, if I'm a family traveling with kids, I know what's happened here is the host here has, I'll call it smartly cheated that their hero photo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But this is a little smaller down here. Yeah, okay, you can see there's a pool, but do you really need all these? Maybe if a pool is really important, maybe you put it up in your top pack here, or maybe you list it here. So again, there is no right answer, but hopefully a couple of these will have you think. Okay, we then take a rewritten listing description, and we have been very specific with this prompt. And by the way, you should never copy and paste any of this stuff without looking at every single character. Like, AI can hallucinate, it can be inaccurate, and we also don't know your property any better than the reviews and the description that we copied and pasted, right? So definitely review it for accuracy. But you can see we start the listing description out with those top 3 guest compliments. You could change that to top things guests love. We're following that Zillow example that Keller Williams uses. And we're also paraphrasing a lot of the stuff that the guest reviews have told us. I like how this host, Eric and Lisa, have broken out a lot of the information in here. So I think there's some best practices here. But we also have broken out a little bit more. We say, hey, look, this is inside the home. This is the stuff that's outside the home, right? So there's never a perfect adjustment here, but maybe if you run this process, there is a thing or two that might help you improve. So that's how the GPT bot works. We're going to start taking some questions. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And we'll take questions. We can run a few minutes over. So if you are on and have some questions, I think the only thing that AI cannot do in this example is, well, yet anyways, is take a look at your pictures. And again, as mentioned earlier, I think a lot of hosts maybe don't have the appropriate host picture. I've seen recently, I ran this process for a host who was in Texas, and they had a fire pit in the backyard, like an active fire pit showing. And I said, it's so hot in Texas. No one can, that makes me not want to stay there. I'm sweating just looking at that. And so I think a hot tip too is like, if you are a seasonal, if you have a summer season and a winter season, let's say you have an A-frame cabin at Lake Tahoe, you might want some winter pictures along with some summer pictures. You might want 2 sets of pictures to sell the experience during those particular times. So the reviews, we won't dig in too much. That's very subjective, but I think that I would just take a look at all your pictures and just make sure you have the top 5 pictures, but particularly that hero photo, because that's what's going to get your click-through rate up. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which I think I have done.
Yep,
And
you're
we'll
good.
see.
We've got some in QA here. I don't know if
Okay.
you see that on your screen. We have a couple of questions in Q&A here that you
All
can have
right.
a look at.
Let's see. I see audience chat. And maybe Lisa,
Open up audience chat, and then you'll see up there a tab that
I
says
see.
Q&A.
Okay, there are 8 up here. Okay, so if you have a question, you can type it in. So Elaine, I'm going to assume that the first ones of these were earlier in the webinar. Where to obtain market benchmarks to compare ourselves. There are not many benchmarks for. I think this was related to like click-through rate and conversion. What we know is they matter. So I will also mention there is a partner in our marketplace called Rank Breeze. They are a product. They actually have like a dynamic pricing product built in, but they do grab some of this information like conversion rate. You can actually test headlines and descriptions. So what they do is they allow you to A/B test some of these things. So they'll allow you, let's say, change a picture or change a headline, let it run for 2 weeks, and then they'll give a B variation. So you have an A variation, a B variation, and then they'll see which one of those get better visibility in the rankings. but also click-through rates. So I would consider checking out or at least doing a trial of RankBreeze, and you'll start to get some benchmarks from there, at least for your property. Tracy asked, what is high conversion? Same response there. I actually, I'll look that up. I'm not sure what a great conversion rate is or a click-through rate is, but what we know is it's important. Tiffany wrote also, if you, I'm going to mark these as complete. So thank you, Elaine and Tracy, for those questions. Tiffany said also, if you don't get feedback from your cleaner within the 3-hour period to know how they left, how and why can you commit in advance to giving them a 5-star? I would say that's an operational thing that you need to solve. Not being Machiavellian about it. I'm just saying, like, my cleaners, when they check in within 20 minutes, usually sometimes within 30, it's part of our protocol. They have to go, first of all, I need to know if I need to order any new supplies. So they need to let me know if we're low on any supplies so I can order them before the next guest shows up at 4 o'clock. My checkout's 11, check-in's 4. So I think that's a thing with your cleaners. I think you need to keep the cleaners accountable. Hey, listen, I need to know within 15 minutes of you checking in, I need you to do an audit, make sure there's no damage. They can't know that they took 1 spoon, right away. But I think you generally want to know, like, were they a respectful guest and did they not trash your place? And if that's the case and there's nothing major missing, I would suggest having your cleaners, and what I request my cleaners do is for every check-in, they actually send a message through WhatsApp and say, no supplies needed. Because if I don't hear from them, like, did they do it or not? Did they do the inspection checklist? So I always want them to reply back to me. Unit inspected, no supplies needed, no damage, right? And so that way I know if I don't get a response back, I'm kind of like, hey, what's going on? And that's how I manage it. You might manage it a different way, Tiffany and others, but I would ask the cleaners to do that right away. Also, I also think there's an expectation you have to set with your cleaners. If checkout's 11, do you tell them they just need to complete it by 4 o'clock? Or are you coordinating with them? Listen, I would like for you to be there between 11 and 11:15. My cleaners, they're required. I start paying them 15 minutes prior. They get there. Sometimes the guests check out a little bit early, but they're there because I don't want to have such a tight window. And if we need to fix something, then I want time to be able to fix it as well. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the next reservation. It's worth the 15 minutes of extra payroll for a potential delay or cancellation of the next reservation because I didn't have enough time. If a cleaner shows up at 2, you find out there's some issues, that just is too tight of a window for me. Great question, Tiffany. Tracy asks, have you seen any data regarding guest cancellation rate being a factor? I haven't seen that. I haven't heard any. The ranking factor is host cancellation that we've heard of. I would have to think that if a guest cancels, maybe they could be considering that in the background. That's something we'll take a look at. I would think it's likely that could be a factor. They just haven't told us publicly. Thanks, Tracy. Live Big, Stay Short says we have a flexible cancellation policy that drives our guest-driven cancellations. Does that negatively impact our rankings? A similar question that Tracy asked. I'll dig into that a little bit. We actually have Airbnb partner contacts as well, so we'll see if that's something. It's just not something they have said publicly if guest canceling is related to this. Okay. Let's see. Tiffany asks, is there a minimum number of reviews where this is helpful? For example, if you have 10 reviews, new listing, would this help? Any reviews are helpful because it will look at the listing description. I think it is, if you have less than 10 reviews, I would highly advise that the GPT bot, that you grab the reviews from your closest competitor. And you just need to tell the GPT bot, this is the listing, the configuration, and the reviews for my competitor, okay? Because then the GPT bot is trained for when it analyzes your competition to not suggest listing headlines and descriptions based on your competition. But what we can see from the reviews is why people travel, what they liked about the area, those types of things, and we can gain insight. So yes, it's better if you have more reviews on your own profile, but if not, that's when I would highly advise that you follow the GPT's request to grab the information from your closest competitor. Thanks, Tiffany. Let's see, Derek, another Derek asks, and he spells it the right way too, asks, what was the initial prompt you gave ChatGPT? I just posted, help me improve this listing, and I gave it the Airbnb link. You can start it any number of ways. It will prompt you to input the right questions. Matthew asks, could you reshare how to extract the reviews? Well, we're going to be out of time, but the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So you're really just clicking in the upper left-hand corner, dragging and dropping and continuing. There's a little bit of an art to it to grab all of them, especially if there are many. So just take a look at the review, Matthew. Antonello, can you show how and where to look for stats like conversion rate? We addressed that. I don't believe they publish them. I would check out RankBreeze, one of our partners, where they will display some of those stats. And Fabio, or actually asked Lisa, how did Derek get to the 10-ish questions from the ChatGPT prompt? My opening statement again was, help me improve this listing, and I included a link to the listing, and then I started copying and pasting. Okay, that is all the formal Q&A. Unfortunately, on this platform, unlike the town halls, we don't have the ability to pull you off microphone. I wish we did. I would otherwise. But let's see if there are any, if you have any other questions, type them into the Q&A. Otherwise, Lisa, any thoughts, recommendations? Lisa talks to hundreds of customers. Anything that comes to your mind from the webinar, any tips and practices that you would suggest in this theme?
No, I think we got to most of the main questions. There were some other questions, and people are still writing in. So I think if you really have any burning questions still, feel free to write us support at hospitable.com so that we can work on getting some answers for you. Other than that, I think we should be set. We've got lots more questions coming in, though. So
sounds good. Yeah, I'll see if
us, guys.
I'll see if there
or
are
join
any
the community.
That's right. Yeah. Inside the product, we have a community now. You'll see it right when you log in. It's on the left-hand side. We're sort of converting the Facebook community over into that. So if you have any questions, we'll also post this webinar there. There's a lot of questions on if the bot looks at images. Not yet. It's something that we think could happen, but when we tested that, it's not something I felt like was reliable enough at this point. So I just gave you some manual suggestions for photos. We know they're important. Your hero photo is important. Make sure all your photos have descriptions. That's another thing that I see is people have beautiful photos, but you can add a description underneath each photo. Does each one of your photos have a description? Does it sell what that image is and how the guest is going to feel in that open room or in that pool, right? So use the image description. For now, that's a manual process. Tracy said, great webinar. Thanks, Derek. Mary Bell said Airbnb Insights section provides your rates. So that's a great call out there. I mean, Airbnb so few now. I forgot what's there. That is correct. Yeah, if you click Insights, they do give you some stats. I know cancellation rates. I don't know if it's conversion or impressions, but I do think they give you some information on your listing. Okay, that is it. If you have any suggestions on the GPT bot, please send me an email. I'm just Derek, D-E-R-E-K. I'll actually type it in, .jones@hospitable.com. Give us feedback, what's working, what's not. If you actually tell the GPT bot, hey, this wasn't right for this reason, it's going to learn over time too. So you can send me an email, but you can also tell the bot and it will improve. And let us know if there's anything that we can do to help with your listing, particularly with that bot. I want to thank Lisa. Lisa, thank you for your time. Thanks for answering the Q&A. This was, I think, the highest attended live workshop we had. So thank all of you for attending and your questions. Happy hosting. Take care.